All right, welcome back to the next episode of the Ignite the King podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Diamond. I got a super special guest here today, Tom Shelstad of InnerGuide Expeditions. Welcome, brother. Great to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are going to dive deep. For those of you that have been following the podcast lately, we've been talking a lot about rites of passage. We've been talking a lot about our sons. We are absolutely going to dive deeper on this. So if you're a father, or any individual really, but if you're a father, especially of a son or a daughter that's starting to get to that coming of age time where you're like, how do I usher and bring them into adulthood? This is the episode for you. So we're going to really dive in with Tom today. Tom has been leading and guiding young boys, young girls, teenage adolescents for the last over 25 years, has a super variety of skill sets that I'm sure we will unpack and get into on this episode. He's also closely associated with the Siskiyou Waldorf School, working closely with them, taking their classes on different expeditions, adventures. He recently acquired a huge property up, I believe, in Washington, where he's going to be hosting some of his events as well. We're going to talk
Mm.
about Ignite Junior. We're going to talk about how we're collaborating and working together to bring rites of passage to fathers and sons. This man is a wealth of information, a wealth of wisdom. I'm excited to have this conversation, brother. So, welcome again.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things I want to kind of lay the groundwork for on this podcast episode specifically. Really talking about how to stay connected to our children, especially as they're starting to mature, go through puberty, go to those teenage years, and really drop into rites of passage and where it's lacking, and how to bring that back into the fold in our families, and really specifically talk about how you help to do that through unplugging and getting into nature. Maybe you can give us kind of an overview of InnerGuide Expeditions, the work you've been up to, and then start to get into the importance of how we connect with our teenagers.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I love working with teens and adults, but I especially love working with teens because they're right at this cusp of understanding who they are. And there's this moment where if they really feel seen and understood for who they actually are, there is a confidence that unlocks forever and can follow them through their life. And with Inner Guide, I partner with wilderness and I partner with adventure to create experiences that they get to feel really seen for who they are, and they get to discover more parts of who they are through the adventure. As we move from having, our lives quite overrun with screens, which, we're on screens right now and providing something hopefully that's more valuable than scrolling. But we're all addicted to it in our own ways. And so Inner Guide is a program that I co-founded with another extraordinary facilitator in 2012. And we have been running, rites of passage trips for teens and then custom family expeditions worldwide since. And we've been in 7 countries and 7 states, soon to be more. And what keeps me coming back is the personal growth, the witnessing of seeing people with that aha moment. If you're watching this, you have had aha moments and you've seen people have aha moments, and the inspiration and how that works in a very inspiring way with one another. When we see somebody have an aha moment, it's like it cues that in us. And, if it were just about the adventure, I would have spun out of this decades ago. I started off as a juvenile correctional officer for some years in the 90s, and I've worked wilderness therapy, but I've really been passionate about working with teens in all sorts of different ways, teaching in public and private, and teaching in the college level around creating transformational experiences that help us find breadcrumbs along the way of becoming actually solid human beings and adults that others want to follow.
What you shared there at the beginning of just helping teens to have that confidence to know how to open up, have a space to do that. I just came off of leading a 4-day Ignite immersion, our warrior immersion, and helping adults almost reparent themselves. And I'm like, man, if we had what you're talking about, which is why we're talking about it at that age, I feel like men and people in general wouldn't have to do so much of this personal growth work right now to heal those pasts. And I do
Yeah.
feel like we're the generation of men and women that are both reparenting ourselves and raising the next generation. And in doing that, we get to instill like the principles of what you're teaching on the front end, right?
Yeah.
Not having to go back. So
Yeah.
I think this is really powerful because I mean, I feel like every child needs to have this kind of experience, especially during those teenage years where it's like there's so much challenge, as we all know, with fitting in, with body image, with
Mhm.
confidence, all the especially now, as you said, with screens and social media where it's in our face 24/7. And there's
Yeah.
this societal pressure to look a certain way, to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to fit in. And that was hard back before technology took over. And now we're in this space now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you can share a little bit about and I'm kinda going off script here already, which is fine, it's how we
Perfect.
do it. But, I think this technology piece is, as you said, we're all addicted to it on a certain level. I was at your talk a couple weeks ago where we connected, and you essentially challenge the adults in the room to look at their screen time and to really see like go in
Yeah.
and show like settings, general, screen time and really look. And I think at a certain level, we all, myself included, were a little embarrassed by how much of our time, even if it's for business and it's I'm not just scrolling, it's like just the mere fact of how much time is consumed with the blue light, with the dopamine. It's like we almost need to purge that. I know for the men this last weekend, when they come on site, their mobile phones are taken from them and they don't have it for 4 days. And they've come to love that actually because they're like, please, here you go, take it. It used to be a little bit of a fight, right? But now it's like they desire it. And I think we're moving
Yeah.
more into that now where there's that desire to unplug. So yeah, I'm gonna start with the kind of part I was gonna go last with first, but really the importance of especially on your expeditions, like getting back to nature and having to drain some of that electricity from us, and then
Oh,
what opens up as a result.
I think that we have yet to really understand the impact, like the depth of the impact that technology has on us and the ways that it benefits us are undoubtedly it's also amazing. Like I could not do everything that I do and hold everything that I do without, you know, my smartphone. It serves in a lot of ways and unchecked. Wow. Which most people are fairly unchecked with it. As you said, like challenging the parents and the talks that I give of, okay, we demonize the use of screens and the screen time and the video games and all the things of our kids. But then, like, how often do we hold ourselves accountable? How often do you check your own? Like, you like, oh, my kid's on the phone for whatever, 6 hours a day. Like, okay, let's just go and just to see what the apples and apples are like what's real there and most people are both surprised and appalled and they should be what happens when we take our phones and set them aside for a little bit a few hours to there's something that happens after 72 hours of setting your phone aside. There's an analog rhythm that comes in to replace the digital fixation and there's a presence that we have available to us that's not available when we are if you look at your phone and not just the phone usage but the number of pickups, like there's the hours that we're on but then there's the obsession with how many times does our phone buzz in our pocket, how many times does our world demand or when we're bored that we just pick up our phone. Even me, I'm talking about all this and I'm a walking dichotomy in myself. If I leave my phone behind, like I feel a buzzing in my pocket and it's not even there, like that phantom buzz that
Oh, the
I'm just
fan
so used to it. And like I'm patting my pocket, like I touch my pocket and it's like it's not there. I'm like, wow, okay, got it. And it's distracting. There's no such thing as multitasking. There's no such thing as multitasking with work. There's no such thing as multitasking with family. There's distraction from the things that we are maybe finding most important. And every time that we shift our focus, there's a transition time frame, and that time frame is lost. That attention, time is the one finite resource that we have. Well, you can only spend 1 minute one time. You'll never go back and spend it another way. And as we model for our kids, what do we do with time? How do we really pay attention to what's most important?
So what do you notice when you take, let's just say, teen boys or adolescent boys on an adventure, and you talked about that 72-hour mark, right? Where go from a digital world to the analog world and we start really reattuning to nature. What's been your experience with those kids, and what shifts in them, or how do they open up, or what have you noticed just in even in their physiology as a result of?
Yeah. Well, there's, of course, a presence that comes in the first 24 hours. There might be a little more anxiety because, of course, like on our trips, phones, they might stay on. Like sometimes there's a 12-hour car ride to get to a trailhead, but then there's 2 weeks of being in that trailhead, and they get in the van and phones go into a lockbox. And there's a my phone is out and it's being passed around to share music over the van speakers, so that it's a shared experience in that way. But once hitting the trailhead, there's a little bit of anxiety. There's a cleansing time period where there's a little bit more anxiety, maybe because we don't have the pacifier. But then at that like 48-hour mark, like once we have gotten into the wilderness and slept 2 nights, when we wake up on that third day, there's something that shifts. There's a presence that shifts. There's an awareness that shifts. There's an availability that shifts. And that's kind of where the work starts. That's where the pre leading up to that is, creating a safe container, and we're doing circles and inviting them to, inquire and on a deeper level than maybe they are used to. And, at that, 48 to 72-hour mark, that 2 to 3 days in, they start to become more of who they are, that isn't focused or isn't confused with or deluded by the distractions that we have in our modern lifestyle.
A lot more to unpack here, so let's keep going deeper on this. I love it. I love it. We can only focus our attention on one thing at a time. Now, if we're focusing our attention on 100 things, we have to shift gears all the time to go between them. That creates a lot of, like, I would say, like a staccato energy in the nervous system, that fight or flight, right? It's just always on. And for me, going in nature is a way to reconnect to the rhythm of the earth, and to almost have that technology leave our body, right? So to be off grid is such a special thing. And we're just living in this world where we are constantly connected, right? So Tom, I really want to thank you for being on the Ignite podcast today and sharing your wisdom. This is so valuable for us fathers to know what our children are going through, what's possible for them out there. I'm super excited to lean in more with you and develop what we can create together to provide these opportunities for children and fathers to connect in this way. And thank you so much for the work you're doing. And for those that are interested in Tom's work, all of his information will be in the show notes for InnerGuide Expeditions. If you're interested in having your children join him, or as an adult, join him on his work together. So, Tom, thank you for being here and super appreciate it.